Hello, everyone. Oh, yes, we are all here. You were expecting only seeing one person here, right? No, we are all here. This is the panel that we have for today's session, and welcome to this session. Thank you for coming today. Hello, everyone. If you can write that you're hearing us well, that you can see us as well, and where are you coming from today? Where are you joining us? From where exactly? So let's start this panel. Welcome to the SEMrush webinar. My name is Fernando Angulo. I'm Senior Market Research Manager. I've been working for the company for the last 10 years in different roles. And I've been amazed about how this company, many companies in this industry, are data lovers. So in this case, I'm going to be starting presenting our guest here. Actually, I'm going to be introducing my fellow moderator, who's going to be joining me today as well, Jimmy Newman. Jimmy is the founder of the consulting firm that bears his name, Jimmy Newman, business strategy, online marketing, and sales powerhouse for a small and medium enterprise. He has been dubbed the impact influencer for the outstanding results he achieves for many of his clients. Jim is also the senior advisor for the New York Marketing Association, as well as the founder of Moving Forward Small Business, a global effort to leverage the power of marketing, technology, and innovation to reduce startup failure and save 1 million businesses by 2050. Incredible. Thank you, Jimmy, for being here with us. As well, we have with us Marcus Tober. Marcus Tober, he's the head of enterprise solution at SEMrush. He has been an expert in search and SEO since 2000. In 2005, he founded Searchmetrics, an SEO software company in Berlin, and led the company till 2019. In 2016, he became European Search Personality of the Year. Fantastic. I remember I was there too. In January 2020, he joined SEMrush to build new solutions that change how large company experience and do SEO by removing dependencies and friction between SEO, product engineering, and marketing. Thank you, Marcus, for joining us today. We have also Martin Henning. Martin is a Sweden-based digital marketing professional and consultant with more than 15 years background in e-commerce, SEO, and social media. He has experience as in-house marketer, agency-side marketing strategist, and most recently as marketing success manager on the vendor side with one of the world's largest SaaS companies. His biggest work-related passions are marketing automation, customer experience, uh, and analytics. His clients include B2C and B2B companies from various industries, including telecom, manufacturing, and retail. Thank you, Martin, for joining us here. I
Thanks for having
was
me.
expecting to see the Salesforce logos somewhere there, but it's not there today. Thank you very much. Our next panelist is Jennifer Lapp. She's an experienced content strategist with a demonstrated history of working in the internet industry, skilled in search engine optimization, SEO, market research, content marketing, business development, and marketing strategy. A strong marketing professional with a master's degree focused in European management from Technisch. I don't know how to pronounce it in German. If you can help me with that, what is the name of your
It's just a
degree?
technical university. That's totally fine, Fernando.
Sounds very fancy in German. Thank you very much for joining us. She is coming from HubSpot. Fantastic. And we have also Natalie Lunieva. Natalie Lunieva, she's an entrepreneur, founder, and growth advisor to SaaS companies, drawing from her more than 10 years of leading companies and growth themes. She helped over 100 companies implement high ROI opportunities, scale their operations, and grow high performance teams. Thank you very much for being here. This is our all-star roundtable panelists here. And let's start with something really interesting, which is, of course, data. I'm going to be sharing with you just a couple of slides, a few slides on how companies are implementing data. So we will start from that. And after that, we will start with our roundtable. Are you ready to start? So let's go for it. So this is the presentation we prepared for today's roundtable. Basically, when we're seeing numbers, data, and of course, when we know that companies are working a lot with analytics, there are some of the names of the companies that came to your mind, right? For example, Tesla, Nintendo, Adidas. Yes, those companies are really high into data. But what are the do's and don'ts of that analysis? That's the thing that we're going to be discussing during our panel session, and how to implement data to strengthen your marketing strategy. Let's go to a few numbers. So this is the state of web traffic. And here we can see just a comparison year over year about how overall, with the top 100,000 domains worldwide, the line has been increasing year over year by 25%. So that means that there are a lot of companies after the pandemic period that went online, publishing their content, publishing their product, their services, and the internet has grown a lot. Just with the numbers that we have, we can pick a little some winners and some losers in terms of categories. Here you can see that main winners are the travel and leisure category. Most likely, this is our revenge in terms of traveling into 2021, because in 2020, well, that was a real problem for everyone because of the pandemics. And we can see that one of the biggest losers here is online education. You remember everything was online. Some of the schools and universities are still online because they found a good niche in that category. But from last year, that trend is going down. You can see the rest of the categories. So we pick a bunch of data, we just filter it out, and we can see what is happening overall on the internet, right? But let's go with the foundations. What is business data? And if you can tell what is what is data to your business, you're going to be okay. But for us, it's basically everything. Data is everything. We are excluding from our vocabulary words like I think, or in my opinion, because we can have the data and we can explain things using that data, which is there. Let's make it simple. So this is the definition that we most like. Business data is all that information that is related to a company, such as sales data, customer contact information, and even website traffic statistics. So basically, we have four types of data. Data analytics, which is first one, descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. The main questions that these four types of data analytics are answering are: what is happening in my business? Why is it happening? What's likely to happen? And what do I need to do? Four questions for all the businesses that they need to be answered with data, of course. In SEMrush, we are working with data. Actually, we are turning traffic data into intelligence. How we are doing that? We are collecting data with the clickstream data. Then we have the process of data cleaning or data aggregation. We have our own algorithms that are working with data cleaning and machine learning. Then we have the data modeling that we are calibrating this model every single time, also with machine learning to factor in the specifics of each country and device. And then we have data delivery. So it's ready to use traffic insights for any domain. So traffic count, user behavior status. So we are working a lot with data, and we have actually good results. But you can see that the future is coming, right? And it's not everything about Elon Musk or Mars, but the future is data. We can see that in the latest data and AI leadership executive survey 2022. As you can see, the comparison between the last 4 years are telling us that, okay, in 2020, driving business innovation with data has grown 64%. This year, it's a little bit of collapse there. and a decrease in 56%. Competitive on data analytics as well for what the top 100 companies worldwide in different categories, so in finance, in the health industry, are also going up every single year. If we ask those companies as well, what are the results? The results are measurable. So from a data and AI investments perspective, yes, 92% of those companies say yes. The results are really, really measurable, which is the main question for SEO, PPC, advertising. AI statistics. Here you can see that the measurable result is there for most of the companies. Well, I give you some food for thought. Let's start discussing these numbers and the questions that we prepare for our panelists. Let me remind you that as well, you can ask any questions in the chat that we have here in YouTube and in the platform, and you can we will gonna give it to our dear panelists. So Jimmy, let's start with the panel.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Fernando, for that. There's a lot of great information there. But the big question is always, well, what do we do with it? How do we leverage it? How do we break it down, understand it, and figure out what we need to do? So, and I like what you said about, business data is everything. Tools like SEMrush have really given us the opportunity, especially even as small organizations, small businesses, all the way to large businesses, to get access to this data so we can make better decisions, because even the smaller the business that you have, the less resources and the less time you have to make decisions. So you have to be able to make the best decisions possible based on the information you have at hand. So thanks for being able to provide tools like this. So let's go ahead and get started. And, the first question I want to pose to the panel is why business data is so important to companies. So Natalie or Marcus, I want either one of you to kind of start this off and really focus on, what's the why behind this data.
I can start, and everyone here has so much expertise in like a little bit different things. So I think we have a well-rounded panel here, and it looks like it's very quiet in the comments. So if there are any questions, please drop them in the comment, and we'll be happy to kind of continue the conversation there. But you mentioned data is everything. I think that what we do with the data is everything. So yes, everyone has so much data and they're kind of drawn into the data, especially these days, but it is what we actually are able to do is what counts the most to me. I'm going to preface everything that I'm saying with the information that I'm not a trained data analyst by any means. I've learned everything by doing and actually through all the mistakes. But I'm of the opinion that you probably heard what gets measured gets improved. And I think like this is taking a step back and kind of looking at it from a bigger picture. In my opinion, in my experience, that's what differentiates a more experienced CEOs, CMOs, or department heads versus less experienced, is having the grasp on data, knowing how and why it changes periodically, every week, every month, or whatever. However, you are checking the data, knowing how to turn this data into an impactful business metric, knowing where this data is coming from in case there are discrepancies in data. I see so many times that once we start asking deeper questions like why is this changing, or why is that, a lot of times those people are not able to answer those questions. So I think this is important for all of us, all the experts, everyone in the company, to know their data, how this data connects to a metric, and how this metric impacts the bottom line, the business bottom line. And so that is why the data is important, because it's connecting basically like throughout all the departments, throughout all the activities and everything that is happening in the company to the bottom line.
Absolutely. I love that. Marcus.
Yeah, so I mean, I can only add here. So a couple of things, working with data, you need as a foundation. The first one is, from my perspective, is you need to know the difference between leading and lagging KPIs. So if you look at something, in your business context, you need to understand if you look back or if you look forward. And typically, people use only lagging KPIs because things like traffic, impressions, clicks, leads, conversion rate, all these things is something that already happened. They do allow you to kind of like predict somehow the future, but real leading KPIs are a little bit different. So that means in your business context, you need to include things like seasonality or search volume. You need to include trends. You need to even include competitors, because if they kind of grow, they might even like kind of push you out of like some areas of your business. And even visibility metrics, like SEMrush traffic or clickstream data is something you can use as leading metrics, to kind of like get understanding, is there a demand in a certain market in areas that you are not in yet. So this is something you have to understand. The next one is, from my perspective, is expectation management. So if you use data, it's super important that you understand that first, every plan you make using the business data is also that you should know that it's most unlikely that you are not going to hit your plan. The plan is there to get, confidence and to kind of like make investment decisions or decisions generally. But in most cases, you're never going to hit your plan. That means you need to measure, validate, adjust on a continuous basis. That's very important. And then, just to wrap this up, maybe, especially when you make decisions, often you rely on stakeholders, right? So of course, if you use business data in your own context, it's your company, your budget, you make everything like because you can, fine, up to you. But in most cases, if you work in a company, or if you have a partner, if you have an investor, you need to know that stakeholders, they interpret or see data in a very different context. So when you look at business data, maybe they will look different at it. So that means you always need to understand that you need to create references using business data. So that means if you look at, traffic, or you make a forecast and you talk to an investor or stakeholder, you need to tie it to some like business metrics for them, right? So you need to kind of like translate it into the language that stakeholders understand. That's often anyway the problem in SEO, right? That people do not use the right metrics to kind of like get buy-in and attention. That's why I think using business data is super important, but you also need to know the do's and don'ts and how you use them. So that's
Absolutely.
my 2 cents.
That was, love that. I love both Natalie and Marcus. I thought both of what you brought to the table here was amazing. Natalie, in regards to, the thing I picked up here was, everybody, doesn't matter who they are in the company, needs to understand data. It's no longer for the nerds, and I'm classifying myself as a big one at that, and Marcus, the leading and lagging indicators. I think, there's definitely a big issue, even when I worked at an agency where, you're not able to explain the data properly to the person you're talking to, they don't get it. And then they don't understand the true ROI that this type of data can bring for a business. So, absolutely perfect. So let's go ahead and move on to our next question. I open this up for the entire panel. How is business data used by different teams in a company? So, there's so many different departments depending on the size of the company. How is this data being used? So I'm going to open it up to someone else, in maybe Martin or Jennifer.
Sure, I can take a stab at it. My background is in marketing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So for marketing teams, the more you know about your customer, the better you can tailor your products and services to that person. So it's absolutely critical. Back to your point, that data is everything. It's certainly true in marketing. And yeah, I think when it comes to traditional marketing data, we used to have the issue that we don't have enough data, right? But I think at this day and age, we have that much data, and now the true challenge is to make sense of all that data. And like you said, there are different teams using different data, even in marketing. So from a marketer's perspective, the amount of emails that you're sending, how much of an indicator is it for the quality, right? And how many of those emails are bouncing? That might be more of an interest for, let's say, the IT department, because they need to see what's happening here. Whereas the marketer would more focus on, okay, what is happening once that email hits an inbox? Are people engaging with it? Are they reading my email? Are they doing what I expect them to do? Are they clicking? Are they converting? Right. So I think the amount of metrics is constantly increasing, and we have a lot of technology out there, both free and ones to pay for, that will help you collect all that data. But to your point from earlier, we also need to make sure we have that skill set in the companies to really make sense of that data and to really focus on, well, which one of all those metrics are now the ones to focus on. And I personally think, the ones that indicate intent are probably the most useful, at least from a marketer's perspective.
Absolutely. I agree with you as well. Jennifer, anything to add to that?
It's crazy to be lined up with such a massive experience in this panel, to be fair. But from speaking as an SEO, I think on this team, and I want to also put at the same time a question to Marcus on this, because he mentioned getting buy-in from other stakeholders. So one thing that especially on SEO teams are struggling with, or using the data that we have, it's like keyword, search volume, CTR from the Google SERP now, especially with the rise of the zero-click search, finding new ways of engaging the audience. I think one of the main struggles that teams have is to find, as Martin said, find ways to interpret the data correctly and then being able to deliver it to the stakeholders to make sure that they get buy-in and support from leadership on individual programs. And I think that even though it might differ from team to team, having like the email marketing team focusing on different KPIs, obviously, than the SEO team or the social media team. But in the end, as long as you can really, as long as you as the team understand the data, where it's coming from, where it's going, and what conclusions you can draw from it, and being able to actually present that to leadership is one of the key skills. I'm just opening up to point you out, Marcus. What is your experience in getting buy-in, especially for SEO, from leadership?
Yeah, often a struggle for SEO people because they love their work, but often they have a problem in translating their SEO language into business context. Thanks, Jennifer, for that question. I mean, I truly believe that using data, but in a company where you want to work with different teams, the most important thing is that you need to know different teams or individuals care about different things. They don't care about average position or ranking or backlinks or internal links or even page speed. They don't. So they care about their own things. So if you, for example, figure out as an SEO that you have a very slow website, you cannot go and tell an engineer like, hey, we are slow, make us fast. That doesn't work. So you have to put things into a context. So if you go to an engineer, you need to know he cares about good code, clean code, documentation, feasibility. So his definition of ROI is very different than your definition and the definition of sales and marketing and managers. So that means in that moment, if you have a translation, meaning I'm an SEO, I figured out that something is broken with the website, I go in and I show like, hey, these pages are broken. That's the potential risk we have, losing traffic, meaning losing revenue or losing customers or having any other risk. And if you fix this, then we are going to kind of like avoid this risk, or maybe we can improve our traffic and win more customers. So you have to translate it, and you have to be very careful in how you translate the message, because every team, because they care about different things, they will receive the message differently. So if you talk with a decision maker, for example, you're an SEO and you want to get buy-in for content marketing strategy, you cannot just go in and say, I've made a forecast using search volume. This is the potential traffic we have with my super fake CTR calculation. Hey, just give me money. This is not how it works. So you know exactly what I mean, right? So what you need to do is you need to kind of first pick how can you translate the additional traffic or additional business into real business numbers so that this decision maker cares about. Then you need to be realistic, because important is once you kind of overpromise and then underdeliver. That's a one-time trick. You do it once, you get budget and attention, and if you underdeliver, you're not getting it again. So you really need to try to be realistic. And in that moment, when you understand all these different individuals, and marketing has a different language, and salespeople have a different language. So in that moment, you are able to use data with the different teams and get buy-in, and hopefully you can create more success.
One thing that I can only advise, and because it's proven quite effective for HubSpot, is that most of the teams have shared goals with other teams. So whatever we do on the SEO side feeds into obviously what other teams are doing. So anything in signups and leads, for example. So we created goals that are shared between those two teams, and both teams are serving that purpose. And that helps a lot in just the alignment between the effort of those teams.
And for me to jump in, Natalie, I know you're going to say something, but you hit the nail on the head, Jennifer, with that. I was going to say, being able to break down the silos and align the goals across all departments will make it easier for those to get on board. But you can also, if you're able to track those goals and track that strategy, you can see why maybe a certain KPI was not hit, a certain project stalled out, and it might not be even though you're in charge of it as a department, it might not have been your actions that stalled it out. And if you can track that, you can determine and, of course, win that budget back or keep that budget. So that can help. But Natalie, go ahead. You're going to say something.
One thing, I think one of the challenges that both Marcus and Jennifer spoke about was bringing those different data points and metrics into common denominator. Basically, different departments or different people in the departments have different ways of interpreting their achievements or goals. And so once they bring, let's say SEO has rankings, and then content team has one metric, and then someone else has different metric, and so all those metrics are very hard to bring together. I love how Jennifer mentioned common goal for different people or different departments, but all it is basically but that we're talking about different things using different languages. And once we're able to bring all of those data points and metrics into a common denominator, and it can be different for different companies, by the way, and different for different departments and for different people. And I think this is something that people within the departments or within the companies can identify for themselves. Not something that is being brought down by a manager or a CMO, but actually internal discussion, because once they identify what it is that is driving all of those people's efforts and all of their KPIs, what is it, the connection tissue and the connection point, everything should be easier.
Love it. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Now we're talking about business data, but now I kind of want to pivot a little bit and talk about personal data, because that is definitely a part of this whole process. So what challenges do companies face regarding personal data? There's a lot of things going on, especially with the soon to be disappearance of the third-party cookie, leaving us with first party, second party. And then I even found out there's a thing called zero-party data. Yes, that is a thing, ladies and gentlemen. So who wants to start and talk about some of the challenges they're facing with the personal data side of things?
Yeah, I can probably take that, Jimmy, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't like some party data, right? But yeah, you're quite right? And today we talk a lot about how data is everything, how data is critical. At the same time, we know that the more we know about our customers, the better we can serve them. But we're also finding ourselves in this new landscape of data privacy, right? We have privacy built into our devices. We have privacy default built into our browsers. And consumers have much more control over what they're sharing with companies than ever before. So that's, to your point, Jimmy, the earlier we start to change to a first-party data strategy, the better. And while this sounds like bad news for marketers, because it's a lot of work and a lot of our favorite reporting is not that reliable anymore, I personally also see it as an opportunity to really go back to basics, right? So maybe we don't even have to gate all that content, right? Maybe we can just make that report publicly available. If the content is that good, I'm pretty confident that customers will find a way to contact us, right? So again, to our point from earlier, we have tons of data. but it's going to be much more difficult now to really connect that data to a single individual. So all we can do is try to figure out, what are some of the channels that are working great in general. We can try to segment. We can, and not just can, we should get consent for everything, right? To make sure the customer is in full control. And then, we should focus on what matters. So maybe the email open, which right now is a bit of an iffy one since Apple threw us that curveball with iOS 15. Maybe email opens wasn't that important to begin with, right? Maybe we should more focus on, well, what happens once that email has been opened? What kind of CTA do we have in there? How do we get people to convert, and so on? And we can still use data anonymously, even if we can't really connect it to a person, to see, well, what are our most best performing channels? Where do our leads and prospects tend to spend their time? Where and when is a good opportunity for us to engage them, and so on. So it is a challenge, right? Bottom line, but I feel like it's also a big opportunity for us to just learn more about our customers from a first party perspective. And to me, that includes things like just asking them, right? What is it that you need from us? How can we help? It could be things like using that on-site search that we see on websites to see what are they actually looking for versus what do I assume they're looking for, and then really pick them up when and where they are. But I personally think it's a good trend that we're seeing, but it's a bit of a challenge for marketers to adopt.
Yeah, it's definitely a mind shift thing that has to happen here with the data. And I like what you talked about in regards to, ungating content. A lot of marketers are like, they probably have over there having a conniption, but at the but at the end of the day, it makes us have to create better content, create stickier content, really focus on building a relationship and a brand with the end user versus making it transactional.
Yeah, and I think we're just being more mindful then, right? So instead of sending those mass emails, we make them a bit more targeted. If we ungate our content, we can still put, an easy way to contact us on the actual document itself. So there's still ways around it. But I completely agree, right? Marketers, and I think sales is actually worse than marketers, to be honest, when it comes to this, right? It's like, ideally, we have those 20 different pieces of information from our prospects before we ever talk to them. Can you just put that into a form? And then you get like a 2-pager PDF, right? So there's just not that balance. So I'm all for, providing value, understanding your customers, what they're looking for, providing solutions, and making it easy for them to make business with you.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So unless anyone else has anything to say, I'm going to move on to our next question here that I'm actually going to focus on Natalie for this one. How has data helped in analysts of customer behavior and buying patterns? So, how do we, what's going on there? How's that happening?
So the question is how data helps in the analysis of customer behavior and buying patterns, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So the easiest way to think about this is, let's think about, for example, like an e-commerce type of business.
Mm-hmm.
So we can think about some multiple touch points that every customer has in their buying cycle, right? So there's like a store visit, there's a product view, there's an add to cart, start a checkout, then have they added the apps, anything that there's upsell to them? Are they taking advantage of that? Have they completed the purchase? Are they first-time buyer or a repeat buyer? And then probably the last one is something like, are they a brand ambassador, or like, do they actually, promote the company in any way? And so when we're thinking about like this buying cycle, it is easy to try, and especially for e-commerce businesses, to understand what is the percentage, or like what is the fall off points for every of those touch points. And then let's say that add to cart, the third step, let's say only 1% of all the people add something to their cart, or let's say 5%, doesn't matter. So if we're only able to double that, or like increase it by 50%, or do something, or like there are like 7 step points. If we only increase each of those points by, let's say 5 or 10% improvement, we're going to have a massive bottom line results for how many, or like the percentage of all the visitors actually end up buying. So once we know those numbers, it is seemingly easy to extrapolate what can be done in order to increase our overall, income or like revenue or whatever. So the way that I'm thinking about this, how to implement this for every type of business, check which metrics are important for your type of business. For example, I'm in the software business. So for SaaS companies, one of the very known person talking about those metrics is Ben Murray. And so find those metrics that are important for your type of business. Check with the thought leaders and industry leaders in your industry, and then find those metrics in different tools. It is most likely going to be in different tools where one data point is going to be in Google Analytics, another data point is going to be somewhere else. And so you have 5 different dashboards that you're going to need to check in order for you to understand what is happening with my buyer or with my visitors on every step point and where are they falling off. And our goal here is to identify how can we improve in each of those steps so that in the end, bottom line end goal, improving, scaling company or increasing sales and stuff like that. And so it is okay that you're going to have all of those metrics in different tool dashboards. And this is actually what I do. I take a spreadsheet, and in my case, I took it from Ben Murray, and then I combine all of those metrics into my spreadsheet from all of those different dashboards. And now I have an awesome dashboard where I can see on each step what is happening. And I think this is helping to visualize this funnel. Unless you have a complex solution already built in where you're able just to see what's happening. But a little bit of a trick here and challenge that once you start digging into why this is actually 5% and not 7%, or why this is 5% this month and it's been 10% last month, unless you actually start diving into those numbers, the all-in-one dashboard that any platform is going to give you has questionable data. And so you're going to have to double check each of those numbers to understand where it's coming from. Because let's say a company like Profitwell is taking information from Stripe. But unless you know how Profitwell is calculating the churn, that it's not this month's churn, but like last month's churn, you don't know that, oh, I thought that this month I have 5% churn rate. Turns out I have 10% churn rate, because you don't know how it's actually being calculated. So all of those data points are important for you to gather into your dashboard, and you being very familiar with those numbers and knowing where those numbers are coming from. And then once you have those data points, start asking questions. Why is it 5% this month and 10% last month? And then just start digging into each of those numbers.
I do love this approach of that journey, right? It's like, we have all those moments that matter. And I also love that lean approach of trying to really tweak every single one to get to the bottom line. So I think that's a great one. I don't love the fact that you have to have multiple dashboards. Maybe there's something in here where we can try to get it to like one source of truth a little easier, because it sounds like a lot of manual work, which of course I understand is
Yep, I agree.
the
But
reality.
especially for earlier stage companies,
Absolutely.
they're going to think about, hey, I need to have this single dashboard. I'm going to spend months creating this dashboard and working with my developers and like people, and like, oh my goodness, it is much easier. It's literally taking you 5 minutes to pull those data points into your biggest, big dashboard. If this is what you need to do it. It seems like complicated, and yes, there are tools that can automate that, but it is not that big of a deal, taking you 5 minutes, and now you know where each of those numbers are coming from. So there is like benefits and disadvantages, and so I don't think of this as a disadvantage, to be honest with you.
Yeah, maybe you can share one of those templates with us after the call. I would love to see that.
I would love to. By the way, if any of you are software companies, and I would love to share my spreadsheet with you. Also, there's another type of spreadsheet. It's kind of talking a little bit about the, how those numbers that we have. For example, we have like 1% of conversion from visitor to paying customer. Yes, there's all like a dozen of other steps in between, but like from visitor to paying customer, what is our conversion rate? And like from visitor to, let's say, a trial or add to cart or whatever your next touch point is, let's say 10%. And so you plug in those numbers into like in the future, let's say 1 month in the future, like 1 year in the future, and then okay, with this traffic, or like with this pattern that I have of increasing traffic velocity by like 10% every single month, and if I'm able to decrease my churn rate or whatever, if I'm able to improve my add to cart rate by 10%, in the end I'm able to actually generate 3x more revenue by the end of 12 months in the future. So like some kind of projection is going to be helpful there as well.
Well, that was amazing, and I'm sure that spreadsheet is immaculate. So, I definitely would love to see that as well. At the end of the day, we're no longer making decisions with our gut. Gut can play a slight role, but if we really want to see the success of a company that, and everyone on top of that has to benefit from that, you got to leverage that data. And it seems like for you, Natalie, it goes beyond just a couple of tools. You have to really understand how to bring all that together. And I'm assuming from there, you're able to really bring out to the stakeholders, whoever they may be, a really great picture that more of them can now understand and rally around, right? Correct?
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely. So, all right. So let's keep going. And again, if you guys have questions, please drop them in the chat. We love to definitely hear them. And let's move on to our next question. And what I want to do is we want to talk about implementing a data strategy. So, what are the main goals? What are the steps? What are the processes that you guys have used to in regards to implementing a data strategy? Is it on a the overall company level, or is it department based? How have you guys worked with digital strategies and provided implementation around that? Anybody who might want to go first? Or you can even talk about how a data strategy is implemented, based on your position.
Okay, I might start and give everyone else some thoughts. So data strategy is something that sounds like super exciting, and everyone's like, oh, I need data. And I've seen like let's say 10 years ago, when people started using dashboards and shared dashboards, and many companies that put TV screens in all these different offices, the devs had their TV screens and marketing had their TV screens, and then sometimes in the lobby even there were other TV screens, that stuff like this. So I don't see that often anymore. I don't know if you see the same trend. I don't see that often anymore. But I don't believe that data has become less relevant. I do believe that companies understood that data need to be tailored towards like the needs. The cadence need to be tailored towards the needs, and that I think companies are more struggling with there's too much data now. There's too much that you can do, that people are overwhelmed with like, oh my God, I get this report from this team. And then someone puts me in CC on another report from this team and that, so I think data companies generally should be very careful with what they use. From my perspective, it's more important that they define their North Star metrics, for their business, for their teams, and that everyone somehow kind of like builds their like own metrics that always relate to like the overall company North Star metric. I think this is super important. And yeah, I think also like having a good filter is important, that you do not overwhelm your people in a company with data. So also I've seen like many years ago companies saying, oh, we are super transparent. Everyone in the company need to know everything about everyone and everything, like churn rates and engagement rates and like everything, and that overwhelmed also people. And I think having a good strategy, like a sanity strategy on what you do and how you report, what kind of business metrics you put on a dashboard, and what kind of cadence you put them in. So one tip, for example, is that what I have started to do is like rather aggregate values over a certain time frame, like looking at like the average over a certain week or the average over certain months, than just looking at the day by day, because day by day you have volatility anyway. The weather could kind of like influence things, like news, like big news can influence everything. So looking at on a like some aggregated average level helps you first sleep better. That's one thing that's important. And second, kind of like smoothes things out that people can make better decision, because it's not just fluctuating like every time. So just like food for thought. Haven't prepared myself for that question, but just maybe
Well, I thought you did
everyone
great.
can now contribute,
Yeah. I agree on this aggregated level, and I would even take it a step further. Right? I think trends are often more important than the data point in time. I still remember days from my time, working in social media, where we almost daily or weekly reported on our followers and on our reach and whatnot. Of course, that doesn't really have that much of a business impact, right? So I'm definitely with you. Again, my background is in marketing, right? So I'm always very focused on marketing metrics and data. But I think if you have reliable data, if you point out what are the ones that we want to take a look at, that we want to report on, that we want to analyze, if you have that in place, then it will be easier for you to make those shifts and adjustments. For example, in your budget, right? So if you compare channel versus channel, and you see, okay, this one is working well. If you have data that you can trust and you have it easy in one spot, then you can make those adjustments quite agile, right? You can say, look, this doesn't seem to be working out. Let's switch this. Same like on campaign level. So I think it's a discussion that needs to happen before implementing anything, to say what are our department goals, what are the things that we want to keep an eye on, and then we build processes and involve technologies as a result.
Absolutely. And I'll add on top of that is, when we talk about implementing a data strategy, I think that's hard to do if you haven't even implemented a business strategy, which is that overarching level here, where you're talking about your mission, your values, your goals and your focus, your objectives. All of that has to align, and then you should be able to move on to your data strategy, because there has to be alignment there again to make sure that we're measuring what makes sense for the company to grow. And if we've done that, so if you haven't done the first part, which is just the overall business strategy, you should stop. Go there first, because like one of my mentors said, you can be enthusiastically going in the wrong direction. And I've seen that quite a bit here. So thank you, gentlemen, for that. And I'm going to move on to our next question. I'm going to actually focus this question on Jennifer and Marcus here. How does data help in budgeting and forecasting?
Jennifer,
Do you want
wanna
to start off?
Let's let ladies first.
Uh-huh.
Jennifer.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ladies first, exactly.
I think that's like a very timely question. I think a lot of marketers right now are in the nitty-gritty, nailing down forecasting for the next year, trying to use the data that we had from the last 2 years, which is, to be quite frank, actually use this just forecasting data based on anything that we've seen in the pandemic, because it's just really unprecedented, obviously. But as an SEO, and as Marcus also said before, it's like for me as the leader on the SEO team, it's important to align my team on our Nostra metric, which is ultimately increasing signups and leads, which for my team means that we need to predict how much organic traffic we're going to get from our initiatives on the SEO side of things. And that is extremely hard to forecast in with like the history that we had. So we had to expand the data sources that we're going to use for this time's forecasting. So we used a couple of different models. We were trying to have a look way deeper into market trends that we're seeing from the search volume of our key clusters, of our key personas, and see how much has that developed. How did the persona that we're targeting change over the last 2 years? And then use that to come up with models on how much content and how deep do we need to go with our content in the next year? How much should we increase publishing frequency, or if at all, do we need to, and then ultimately lining up to, this is the amount of traffic that we're forecasting from that, and then see how much we need to invest in budget, moving on to the leadership team with that.
Nice. And it sounds like it sounds like there's a leak into other aspects beyond SEO here. I know we haven't mentioned it, but like surveys, things like that. So it looks like you're really integrating that first party data into this as well to help you, because some of that data is so unreliable.
It's like it's really crucial to use all the data that you can get, and really, as Natalie also mentioned earlier, to one thing, what I really like what you said, Natalie, is like what gets measured gets improved. I think that's super important, and that should be also one thing to keep in mind when you do the forecasting, because you have to, for one thing, you have to have the data, so you need to have it recorded already, like for the last 2 years, and it's really hard to backfill data that you didn't record before. And then on the other hand, you need to see what other sources are impacting your overall KPIs. So for on the SEO side, that's obviously search volume and search changes that can be different by market. So German SERP has changed quite dramatically compared to what we see on the French side, for example. So we need to adjust our forecasts when it comes to that as well, and get the insights from the other marketers as well. And then we, for example, are using something that we ripped up just during the pandemic, to be honest, like a market insights report where we actually using SEMrush data to get historical search volume trends for the keywords that we're targeting primarily, and then find out how the audience is changing, how the search demand is changing, and then make sure we can somewhat predict what is happening in the future, which is obviously hard. But and then also factoring in CTR click-throughs, like just the click-through rate from the SERP, to make sure that from what Marcus already mentioned in the beginning, this fake CTR traffic forecast that you can do from the search volume with the CTR. But since especially from outside, from personal experience on the German market, our CTR has dropped dramatically in the past 2 years. And I see that with a lot of other companies as well. So it's also one thing that you need to be mindful and make sure that you use all of your network and connect with other companies and other marketers in your same position to make sure, are you using the same data? Is there something else that you're not thinking of? Or do you see the same trends all over the industry?
Sure.
One thing I would add to that is, on top of knowing your numbers, it is really helpful to know the benchmarks, so the industry benchmarks. So for example, I'm in the software business again. That means that there are some specific benchmarks for our type of industry. And the benchmarks are that, for example, there needs to be 2% plus conversion from visitor to trial, if you have a trial available. And then for new customers, from trial to new customer, the conversion rate needs to be upwards of 15%. If you don't take a credit card ahead of time. If you do take a credit card ahead of time, it is like upwards of 30%. So knowing those numbers, and then knowing your numbers and how they've been changing their trajectory in the last, let's say, year. Let's say you've been growing at 10% a month steadily. And then your conversion rates have been growing by like 10% steadily as well. Okay, so if you are at 2% on this touch point, and then at 10% on this touch point, and then whatever percent on that touch point, how is that correlating to what's out there in the industry for other companies? Maybe you think, oh, I'm 2%, awesome, this is amazing. And then you see that, the benchmark is like 5%, and you're like, oh. And so now that you're able to see in the future, okay, what if I change this benchmark from my metric from 2 that I have to 5, which is the benchmark? How is that going to impact my bottom line? And so this is the type of projection that I am usually doing. And again, I also have a spreadsheet for that. So for any software companies out there, if you want to get access to that, I'm happy to share. Just let me know on LinkedIn.
Natalie, you're going to end up with a nickname if you keep this up. But so Marcus, you're going to say something, sir?
Yeah, no, I can only agree and add a couple of things, because like Natalie said, like, hey, you need references, you need benchmarks, because otherwise you don't know how you're doing. But at the same time, you also need a list of dependencies, right? So you can make a good projection, a good forecasting, and a forecasting, from my perspective, can make or break a whole like business strategy. So if you do a too defensive forecasting, and happy if you achieved your goal, but you could have been much more bullish and achieve better goals, then you haven't done the best. But the point is that the list of dependencies is something you need to know, because if you make a forecasting, no matter if it's an SEO or conversion rate improvement or an email marketing, kind of like improving the opening rate, whatever, you need to understand what kind of dependencies you have for the forecasting, and then you have to create a list and need to understand like who can you help you kind of like achieving these goals in all these different kind of steps. Then what I also think is important is you always need to relate in your forecasting to real business metrics. So Jennifer said it's very hard now to compare like against the former years, right? So I mean, now we're in 2022, and 2021 was an exceptional year for example, in e-commerce or like many other businesses. How do you compare now? So that means you need to create a good relationship in your forecasting to metrics that make sense. If you just make a year-over-year comparison, maybe that doesn't work. So that means if you maybe compare with 2020 or 2019, maybe that's better for your forecasting. Or in looking at, for example, a competitor and trying to kind of like use this as a relationship if you have some kind of like good numbers or insights. So this is important, that creates a situation where you're more realistic. And that means the more realistic you are, the better you can work accordingly and the more buy-in you get. Then I have like super quickly like a list of don'ts, which is super short, but it just is like something I've seen like too often, especially in SEO, that people use the wrong metrics. They use something like artificial visibility metrics to make a forecasting, which, for example, are annualized, and if you are a business based on like seasonality or based on certain events, if you use something like visibility or just like annualized search volume, you make a nice plan and then you have a business which, for example, dips in somehow, which like has a very different behavior, your forecasting just makes no sense. And the next one is like if you use like unclear, non-intuitive metrics. So for example, if you make a content marketing strategy and you make a forecasting just based on, hey, this is the traffic that we can gain additionally, but you do not incorporate something like what is typically the sign-up rate or conversion rate or something else based on the content, then you just have made a forecast on, hey, this is potentially the additional traffic we can make, but it's no value to your business. So this is something you always have to think of. And then again, just remember, a well-done forecasting can make or break a good marketing strategy in general, and yeah, these are my tips for that.
Love it. Love it. I know we're getting close to the hour here, and I want to respect your time and the time of all of those that have joined us today. We do have a question that from the audience, so if we can make a quick, and anyone can take this question, a couple people, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Fernando. The question is, what's the impact that data implementation has in the companies that you're working with now? So this is open to any of you. So what has been the impact as you guys are implementing data strategies in your own organizations?
Yeah, I can start a little bit. I'm not going to go into details in the interest of time, but too often we have seen companies that make analytics an afterthought, right? So we're really trying in everything we do to have analytics in there from day one, and that could be, web analytics with Google Analytics or something, or it could be something else. But it's really hard to try to recover data that was never there in the first place, right? So just I think the best advice is to whatever you do, don't put analytics last. Make it part of your implementation strategy for any type of content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd also want to add from an SEO standpoint at HubSpot, we have implemented the content strategy, or like HubSpot in general. On our teams, we're all super data driven. We love digging into spreadsheets, into analytics, into, I don't know, we could probably spend most of our time just whipping up spreadsheets for whatever. But the thing is that all of our decisions that we make for the content strategy, from just really, I wouldn't say low level, but the basic content strategy that we have, like what goes live on our blogs, for example, that everything is informed by data. So there's no gut feeling involved anymore, which sounds a little bit sad, but it's something that helped us a lot grow in the to grow in the past years, to make sure that all of the content pieces that we publish, just like from this standpoint, is based on what analytics data do we have in store.
Mm-hmm. And I have no problem. I know, like when you said that gut feeling it's sad, but at the end of the day, I think gut feeling plays a role in certain areas. And when the aspect of leveraging data is to not just to use the data to create content that's going to create traffic, is to use the data to align your content with the audience, so it still becomes a true value add. So, all right. So unless anyone else has anything, Fernando, I give it back to you, sir.
Fantastic. Well, I really love that last question. I was just remembering that, okay, we learned so much things during the last, 10 years I've been working for SEMrush. And one of the impacts that strategy, touched our company was that we can fail faster, so we can have more experiments and we can learn faster from those experiments. So the culture of experimentation is there. If you are into data analytics, you can check the numbers, say, okay, this experiment needs to stop, let's start the other way. So that's something that I really wanted to note here. Well, we are running out of time. Thank you very much for this great conversation, and thank you all for being here. Marcus, Natalie, Jennifer, Martin, Jimmy, you're so great. Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon in some future conversation as well, and let's keep in touch. Thank you very much for the audience for staying with us. If you have any additional questions, just send us a letter, and we will be contacting you with the speakers you want to ask the question for. Thank you very much all, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.